You know what's strange? I still remember the way the air smelled that day. Like rain and new asphalt. I was 23, working part-time at a bookstore and dating Ron. Ron was stable. He held doors open, remembered to call his mom, wore cologne that smelled like clean laundry. He wasn't a bad man, just not my man. We met through mutual friends in college and kind of fell into a relationship. It felt safe, predictable, but never electric. Then I met Paul. It was some charity event my friend dragged me to. I was in flats, my hair barely brushed, and this guy, tall, laughing too loudly, drinking scotch like it was water, bumped into me near the food table. "Sorry," he said, flashing that grin. "Didn't mean to launch my olive skewer at you." I laughed. God help me, I laughed. And that was it. Paul was energy, chaos, charisma. I felt seen in a way I didn't even know I needed. I told myself I was just being polite when we exchanged numbers. I told myself it was harmless when we started texting, then calling, then meeting as friends. Of course it wasn't harmless. It didn't take long before we were sneaking out during lunch breaks, finding excuses to be in the same place. I remember once Ron called while I was sitting next to Paul in his car. I ignored the call. Paul didn't say anything, just looked at me. I lied. "Spam," I said. And Paul nodded. Eventually he asked. He always asked gently but firmly, "Have you ended things with Ron?" And I said yes. I hadn't. Not yet. But I told Paul the first had. I told him Ron and I were done. That we weren't even sleeping together anymore. That it was over in every way that mattered. I wanted Paul to believe me because I wanted to believe it myself. And yes, I ended things with Ron. Eventually. A week or so later. I gave him the whole, "I need to find myself" speech. He cried. I didn't. I was already gone. Paul was thrilled. He held me tighter. Told me he'd waited for this. That now we could start fresh. He said he felt like the luckiest man alive. And I wanted that to be true. I needed it to be true. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. And that, my friend, is where the story really begins. It was maybe 3 weeks after I ended things with Ron. I remember the silence that followed. The quiet in my apartment felt like freedom. No more check-ins, no more pretending. It was just me and Paul now. And I was finally where I wanted to be. Then I was late. Not by much. Just a couple of days. I blamed stress at first, new job schedule, emotional roller coaster, switching apartments. That kind of thing can throw your body off, right? But after day 6, I stopped pretending. I bought a test at a gas station. Took it in the tiny bathroom there because I couldn't wait until I got home. And when that second pink line showed up, I sat on the closed toilet lid for what felt like hours. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just froze. Because here's the thing, when you're in love, truly in love, a baby should feel like a blessing. A miracle. And part of me felt that. But the other part, the one that counted weeks and dates and probabilities, that part whispered something awful. What if it's Ron's? I hated that thought. I pushed it down so fast it almost choked me. No, I told myself. It can't be. You told Paul that you and Ron weren't sleeping together. You promised. And maybe I even believed it. I called Paul that night. Told him I needed to talk. We met at his apartment. I didn't wait. "I'm pregnant," I said. His eyes widened and then, the biggest smile I've ever seen on him. He kissed me. He picked me up off the floor like in some old movie. "We're going to be parents," he kept saying. "We're having a baby." I nodded. I laughed. I said, "Yeah. You're going to be a dad." He never questioned it. Not once. And why would he? I had told him there was nothing going on with Ron. That we weren't intimate. That he was the only one. He believed me fully, freely. So we started planning. Fast. We moved in together. We told our families. He proposed 2 weeks later with a ring that looked like it came from someone who really meant forever. I said yes. We got married in a small ceremony at his parents' lake house. I wore a dress 2 sizes too big, hoping no one would notice the early bump. His mother cried. My dad gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Paul held my hand all night like he never wanted to let go. And me? I told myself I was doing the right thing. That I had chosen love. That the timing didn't matter, the future did. The baby would grow up in a home filled with love. That's what counted. Right? Right? I let myself believe it. I built an entire life on that belief. And for 12 years it worked. Until the day it didn't. If you had asked me 5 years ago what happiness looked like, I would have said, Sunday mornings in pajamas. Coffee with cinnamon. The sound of a child's footsteps sprinting down the hall. I would have said Paul laughing at something Lucas said, me pretending not to cry at school plays, dinners where no one touched their phone. That's what I thought happiness was. And maybe in a way it really was. 12 years. That's how long Paul and I were married before everything cracked open. 12 years of holidays, birthdays, scraped knees, family road trips, dance parties in the living room. We built a life. A real one. And most of the time I believed in it. We bought a house in the suburbs when Lucas turned 5. Paul wanted something with a yard. I wanted something with a kitchen island. We compromised, ended up with both. He planted hydrangeas out front. I put sticky notes with love quotes on the fridge. Lucas called it the warm house. And that stuck. Paul was a good dad. More than good. He showed up. He volunteered for field trips, helped with math homework I couldn't understand, built the most ridiculous Halloween costumes. Lucas adored him. Sometimes I watched them together and felt this painful burst of pride like, I made this happen. I chose this. And our marriage? It had its ups and downs. Like anyone's. There were arguments. Silent treatments. A phase when we barely touched each other and blamed it on being tired parents. But there was also forgiveness. Laughter. A shared language that only people who'd raised a kid together could speak. We had friends over for dinners. We went to the beach every summer. He brought me coffee in bed on my birthday. I gave him socks for Christmas, like the boring wife I promised never to be. And still it worked. Somehow it worked. But underneath it all, there was that one thing. One secret. Every year on Lucas's birthday, I'd watch Paul light the candles. I'd see the way he looked at our son like he was the most perfect thing on earth. And every year for a second, a flicker of guilt would rise up in me like nausea. Because I didn't know. Not for sure. I never took a test. Never asked a doctor. I let the years cover it like dust over a broken mirror. Because what was I supposed to do? Tell Paul after all this time that there was even a chance Lucas wasn't his? Risk shattering everything we built? For what? I told myself the past was irrelevant. That real love, made bloodlines meaningless. That my choice made Paul the father. And for 12 years I managed to convince myself that was true. Almost. Until the day that changed everything. But back then I still believed I'd won. I had a family. A husband who loved me. A son who lit up our lives. A home we made together. Everything looked right. Except for the part that never quite let me sleep. And no one, not even me, saw what was coming next. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I was sorting laundry and wondering how the hell we'd gone through 4 towels in 2 days. Paul had taken Lucas to the walk-in clinic, some minor sprain during soccer practice. Nothing serious. I wasn't worried. Lucas texted me a picture of his foot in a soft brace and a dramatic caption, probably never walking again. Paul sent a thumbs up. I smiled and went back to matching socks. The call came around 5:15. Paul's voice was tight but calm. We're grabbing dinner on the way home, he said. Lucas wants tacos. I said okay. I didn't ask questions. Why would I? Just another regular evening in our regular life. They walked in like normal. Lucas hobbled for dramatic effect. Paul kissed me on the cheek and handed me a bag of takeout. Nothing broken, he said. Just a mild sprain. And then just before heading upstairs he added, Doctor said something weird today. I froze, nacho in hand. Weird how? Paul shrugged. Too casually. Something about blood types. Said Lucas has AB negative. Pretty rare apparently. She mentioned both parents would have to carry a specific gene. I nodded slowly. Okay. Paul tilted his head. But I'm O positive, Ev. There was a pause. The kind that hums. I swallowed. That's still possible, right? I mean, genes can be weird. He didn't argue. Just nodded. Sure. Maybe. But I saw it. The shift. A tiny crack in the surface. That night, he barely touched his food. Lucas didn't notice, too busy scrolling TikTok. I watched Paul, fork in hand, not eating, not speaking. His mind spinning like a locked safe with the wrong code. 2 days later, I found a folded piece of paper in his jeans pocket. A printout. Blood type inheritance chart. Crosses and lines in shaded boxes. I didn't touch it. Just stared. That weekend he took Lucas out for burgers. Came back quieter than usual. Said they ran into someone from work. But something in his eyes, no, something not in them, made my stomach flip. He was pulling away. Piece by piece, thought by thought, Paul was unspooling something I had spent over a decade taping down. Then came the questions. Careful, controlled. When did you find out you were pregnant? Remind me, how long had you and Ron been broken up? And the one that shattered me, is there any chance it's not mine? I didn't lie. But I didn't say the whole truth either. I deflected. Softened. Of course it's yours, Paul. You're his father. Always have been. He didn't answer. That night he slept on the couch. Said it was his back. It wasn't. Something had shifted. Permanently. He was quiet now, methodical. He started spending more time at work. Came home smelling like aftershave I didn't recognize. He stopped kissing me goodbye. And every night I wondered if this was it. If 12 years of our life could be unraveled by one strand of DNA. But the worst part? I still hoped it would go away. That he'd forget. That he'd forgive me for the lie I told, the lie I let grow roots. I was wrong. He wasn't going to forget. He was going to find out everything. He came home early. That alone was unusual. I was in the kitchen chopping carrots, pretending I didn't notice how quiet the house felt lately. How Paul barely looked me in the eye. How Lucas kept asking, is Dad okay? And I kept lying. When I heard the door open, I didn't turn. I said, hey, you're home early, like everything was fine. Like we were normal. He didn't answer. I felt the shift before I saw it. The air went still. The kind of still that makes your skin itch. When I finally looked up, he was standing there. Pale. Silent. Then just one sentence. Are you sure Lucas is mine? I dropped the knife. I didn't mean to. It just fell. Hit the cutting board with a sound that sliced deeper than any blade. What? I said. Reflex. Defense. The kind of what you throw out when your brain's screaming run. He repeated it. Louder. Is he mine? I couldn't breathe. Couldn't blink. My mouth moved but nothing came out. He slammed his hand on the counter. Answer me, Ev. And I did what I always swore I wouldn't do again. I lied. Yes, I said. Of course he is. But he didn't move. Didn't blink. I had him tested. Silence. Then he added quietly, you knew. Didn't you? I closed my eyes. I don't remember walking. I don't remember sitting. Just suddenly I was on the floor, back against the dishwasher, knees to my chest, and my voice barely there. I didn't know for sure, I whispered. I didn't know. He stood over me, shaking, his hands balled into fists. I looked up. It was one time. With Ron. Just before I ended it. I thought it was over between us. I thought we weren't even. I told you we weren't sleeping together, and that was true mostly. But that one night. He turned away. I scrambled to my feet, followed him. Paul, please. I didn't plan this. I didn't choose it to happen this way. I loved you. I love you still. That never changed. He laughed, bitter, broken. Don't say love to me right now. Then what do you want me to say? He looked me dead in the eye. The truth. The real truth. Not your version. So I gave it to him. Yes, I said. It's possible Lucas is Ron's. I told you back then that we weren't together, and most of that was true. But I wasn't clean. I wasn't ready. I messed up. And I was afraid you'd leave, so I buried it. I buried it so deep I started to believe it myself. He shook his head slowly. You let me raise him thinking he was mine. He is yours, I said, stepping closer. He is your son. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. You've been there every moment. Every night. Every scar, every laugh, every bad dream. That's what makes a father. But he didn't hear me. Not really. He walked to the living room, sat down, stared at nothing. And I stood in the kitchen, shaking cold, like my body had finally caught up to what my heart already knew. This wasn't a crack. This was the start of the collapse. At first, he just stopped speaking. The silence was brutal, but I told myself it was normal. A phase. Shock. Grief, maybe. He still came home every night. Slept in the same bed or near it. Ate the food I made. Nodded at Lucas like nothing was wrong. But we were strangers. Two people haunting the same space. Then came the drinks. He started with a beer after work. Then two. Then whiskey. Then he stopped pretending altogether. One night I found a half-empty bottle of bourbon in the laundry room, like he couldn't even wait to make it upstairs. Still, I said nothing. I convinced myself he was processing. That if I just gave him time, he'd find his way back to us. To me. I was wrong. The first night he didn't come home, he texted, working late. Staying at Dave's. I didn't believe him. But I didn't question it either. Not out loud. By the third time, I stopped responding altogether. Lucas started noticing. "Why's Dad so weird lately?" he asked over cereal one morning. I lied. He's stressed. Work stuff. I couldn't bring myself to tell our 11-year-old son that his father was unraveling, or that I was the thread that started the whole thing. But what hurt the most? He stopped looking at me like I was even a person. No eye contact. No anger. Just indifference. Like I was background noise he had long since tuned out. Then one afternoon while I was folding laundry, his phone buzzed on the dresser. He'd stopped caring enough to hide things. A message preview from someone named Lila. With a heart emoji. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. That night when he came in smelling like perfume and excuses, I said nothing. Just stared. He noticed but didn't flinch. Just said what? Nothing, I said. "You seem happier lately." He shrugged. "Maybe I am." That was it. That was when I knew he had someone else. And I had no idea who he was anymore. The man I married, the man who once cried when Lucas lost his first tooth, who used to leave me notes in the fridge, that man was gone. In his place stood a stranger. Cold. Detached. Quietly cruel. I didn't scream. Didn't throw plates. Didn't beg. I opened my laptop. Typed in private investigator. Found one with good reviews. Booked a consult. Her name was Grace. Middle-aged. Sharp eyes. Calm voice. "I just want to know," I told her. "Not to ruin him. Not to humiliate him. I just need truth." She nodded. "Most do." A week later she had photos. Reports. A name. Lila. 27. Fitness instructor. Met him at the gym. They weren't hiding much. Dinner. Drinks. Her apartment. Overnight stays. One report said, observed entering at 9:12 p.m. Did not exit before morning. Grace slid the file across the table to me. "I'm sorry," she said. I wasn't. I was furious. But not at Lila. Not even at Paul. At myself for letting it get this far. For thinking I could bury the past and still grow something real. I sat there staring at the grainy photo of him holding another woman's hand. And I realized. He wasn't punishing me for the lie. He was escaping into his own. I waited until Lucas was at my sister's. The house was quiet. Too clean. Too ready. He walked in, already irritated. Dropped his bag on the floor, tossed his keys in the bowl like it was any other Thursday. I was sitting on the couch, file in hand. He paused. "What's that?" I didn't answer. Just placed the photos on the coffee table, neat, like evidence in a courtroom. He didn't even reach for them. He knew. So I said, voice steady, "How's Lila?" He flinched. Just slightly. But I caught it. "Don't start," he muttered. I stood. "No, let's start. Let's finally start telling the truth around here." He laughed. That bitter, hollow sound I'd come to despise. "You're one to talk about truth. You think this is the same? You lied to me about my son. And you what? Found comfort in the arms of a Pilates instructor? Is that supposed to be healing?" He stepped forward. "You think I wanted this? You think I planned it?" "No," I said, eyes narrowing. "I think you fell into it. Because that's what cowards do." That hit. His face twisted. "You're calling me a coward? After what you did?" "I tried to keep this family together," I snapped. "I lived with that guilt every day and still showed up. For you. For Lucas." He yelled, "You stole 12 years of my life." I yelled back and you threw the rest away. We were both shaking now. Voices too loud. Breaths too fast. He pointed a finger at me. "Don't act like some martyr. You lied. You trapped me." I was scared. I screamed. I was 23 and stupid and in love and terrified you'd walk away. He didn't blink. Just stared. And then quieter, deadlier, and I should have. Silence. My fists clenched. "Well, guess what, Paul? You didn't. You stayed. You raised him. You made a choice same as I did. Based on a lie." I nodded. "Yes. A lie I told because I thought I was protecting something worth saving." He scoffed. And that's when I said it. The thing I knew would slice through whatever was left between us. "You're just like me now. Only weaker." He blinked. "What?" "You had the pain. You had the right to be angry. And what did you do with it? You cheated. You lied. You ran. You made yourself the victim while crawling into someone else's bed." He stepped back like I'd slapped him. I didn't stop. I lived with what I did. I never said it was right. But I stayed. I worked. I kept us afloat. And you? You drowned the second the water touched your feet. He didn't respond. Didn't yell. Just grabbed his keys and walked out. Door slammed. Picture frames rattled. I stood alone in the living room, chest heaving, heart pounding, and realized this wasn't about who was worse. This was about who finally stopped pretending. I gave him 3 days. Not because I was unsure. Not because I was waiting for some miracle. But because I needed to see if he'd do anything, say anything that didn't come from guilt or weakness. He didn't. There were no real apologies. No reflection. Just silence, perfume that wasn't mine on his collar, and that hollow look in his eyes, like I was a stranger occupying space he used to love. So I packed his things. 2 suitcases. One for clothes, one for memories I didn't want to look at anymore. The leather jacket I bought him went in the bag. The button-down with lipstick on the collar? Trash. On the kitchen table, I laid out everything he'd need: bank statements, a printed divorce petition, keys to the car. No notes. No speech. Just facts. When he walked in, tired, rumpled, still smelling like her, I was already waiting. Coat on. Calm. He stopped when he saw it. The suitcases. The papers. Me composed and already halfway gone. You're serious? He asked. I nodded. He moved closer, his hands slightly shaking. Ev, wait. Please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was lost. Everything was falling apart. I said nothing. Then, like a man unraveling from the inside out, he dropped to his knees. Not for drama. Not for effect. He just collapsed. I didn't know who I was anymore, he said through tears. I didn't know what to do. I just watched. The man I married. The man I thought would hold my hand through anything. And now the man I wouldn't even recognize on the street if I hadn't been married to him. I just wanted to feel alive again, he choked. I looked down at him. I just wanted to feel happy. He stared up at me. Eyes red. Hope bleeding out of him. You really won't forgive me? I did forgive you, I said. But staying is something else. He blinked. What am I supposed to do? I shrugged. You should have thought of that before she ever touched your hand. I walked to the door. Opened it. He didn't stand. He didn't fight. He just asked, voice cracking, where will you go? I turned, gave him the softest, saddest smile I had left. Home. And I shut the door. Not with drama. Not with fire. Just finality. He'd been waiting for me to make the decision. So I did. He left the next morning. Didn't even argue. Just packed what was left, took the keys I left for him in a paper envelope, and walked out without looking back. I changed the locks that same afternoon. Not because I thought he'd come storming back, but because I needed it to feel like mine. Like the space I was standing in didn't still belong, even partly, to a man who'd broken it. I filed the paperwork to take back my maiden name that week. Evelyn Brooks. I hadn't said it out loud in over a decade. It sounded strange at first. Lighter somehow. Like shedding a coat you forgot you were wearing. Then I started with the house. I took down the family photos. Not out of anger. Just clarity. I boxed them carefully for Lucas. He has a right to those memories. But I didn't want to see them every day. I didn't want to walk by the hallway and feel like I was walking through a museum of a life I didn't live anymore. I repainted the walls. Got rid of the couch he loved that I secretly hated. I cleared out the garage, turned it into an art space. It smelled like possibility. Lucas asked questions. Of course he did. I didn't lie. I sat him down one afternoon after school, made hot chocolate, and just said, "Your dad loves you. That will never change." But he made a wrong choice. And sometimes that means things have to change. He didn't cry. He just nodded quiet. Then he asked if we could still go camping in the fall. Yes, I said. But you and me this time. He smiled. It was small, but real. There were hard days. Evenings when the silence in the house felt like a scream. Mornings when I'd make coffee and forget he wasn't walking in behind me to grab a cup. I'd hear a car door shut outside and instinctively think maybe he's home. But he wasn't. And honestly, that helped. Because bit by bit, that empty space started to become something else. It was grief, yes. But it was also room. Room to stretch. To speak without fear of being doubted. To stop pretending I didn't see the cracks years ago and stayed anyway. I bought new curtains. Painted the kitchen. Started running again. Lucas helped me build a bookshelf. At the top, I placed a framed quote I found online, maybe cheesy, but it felt like mine. You don't have to burn the old house down. Just change the locks and repaint the walls. I didn't burn anything, but I did reclaim it. This house is mine now. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm waiting for someone else to tell me who I am. Sometimes at night, when Lucas is asleep and the house is still, I sit in the kitchen with a glass of wine and think about that year. Not in regret. Just to look at it. To hold it in my hands like a puzzle I've already solved, just checking the corners one last time. Yes, I lied. I told Paul Lucas was his, knowing even if I didn't say it to myself out loud, that it might not be true. I told him I hadn't been with Ron when I had. Once. A mistake, maybe. Or maybe something else. Something messy, eh? Something I didn't want to name at the time. But here's what I won't say, that it was betrayal. It wasn't. Not to me. It was survival. It was fear. It was wanting to choose love and hold on to it with both hands, even if the ground under me was shaking. I didn't do it to trap him. I didn't do it to hurt him. I did it because I believed with everything I had that we could still be real. That Lucas could be raised with love. That we could make something whole, even if the start was cracked. And for 12 years we did. 12 years of birthdays, homework, inside jokes, long drives. Of Sunday pancakes and movie nights. He wasn't faking that. I know he wasn't. So when he said I stole something from him, maybe that was his truth. But it wasn't mine. He left because he couldn't carry it. I stayed because I could. And I'm still here. Not as the woman who lied. Not as the one who drove him away. Not as anything other than myself. Just Evelyn. I won't wear shame like a scar. I won't rewrite the story to make anyone more comfortable. I made a choice. Maybe the wrong one. Maybe the only one I could live with. And now? I'm still living. There's no fairy tale ending. No neat bow. Just me. My son. A house that smells like fresh paint and lemon oil. And peace. That's enough.